All right, everybody. Here we are for another episode of Now Showing with Mike and Wayne. This is episode 33. We are going to talk about directors, specifically black directors in celebration of Black History Month. I'm going to start with my first film. We picked one film from a couple different directors that we like. I'm going to go with Talk to Me to start out, which is directed by Kasi Lemmons. She also did Eve's Bayou and Caveman's Valentine, two movies I really like, but Talk to Me is probably my favorite one that she's done. And she is also an actress. People will probably recognize her. She is one of the minor kind of lead characters in Silence of the Lambs with Jodie Foster. She plays her friend and like FBI friend. So Talk to Me came out in 2007. It stars Don Cheadle. It is about a radio talk show host in the spans from 1966 to 1984. It stars Don Cheadle, Chewie Ejiofor, Taraji P. Henson, Cedric the Entertainer, Mike Epps, Martin Sheen, Vondi Curtis Hall, who is actually the husband of Kasi Lemmons. So it's got a great supporting cast. It about an outspoken ex-convict, Ralph Petey Green. Don Cheadle talks his way onto the air at a white-owned radio station in 1960s Washington, D.C., fueled by new music and social upheaval of the times. He courts controversy while becoming the voice of the black movement. So it's this man, Petey Green, who just kind of finds a way to get his voice out there. He feels like he has something important to say, and he ends up kind of changing the scope of media in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and giving the black people a voice. It's a great performance from Don Cheadle. I believe it was, I don't know if he was Oscar nominated, but I believe he was at least Golden Globe nominated for it. I think it's kind of a little film that people forget about. Most of Kasi Lemmons' films, I think, are really well received, but are all very kind of indie, so no one really remembers them. But she's a very good director. She handles topics like this very well. Eve's Bayou is another one. It's very emotional. It's about a father molesting his daughter, so that's a very rough one. Samuel L. Jackson stars in that one. Yeah, it's a really good movie, but it's just crazy. And Talk to Me is just one of those. I think it's probably her most commercial film. She also did the recent Harriet Tubman movie, which I have yet to watch. But Talk to Me just always was one of those movies that I really, really liked a lot. Don Cheadle, again, like I said, he's fantastic in it. And it's just, if you haven't seen it, you got to seek it out. I think it's airing on Showtime right now. But Kasi Lemmons, I think, is a director that she's been around for a long time, and no one really talks about her. And I feel like people should know her name, not just as the minor role in Silence of the Lambs. I mean, she's a really good director, and she's got an eye for these like classic films. So that's why I chose her as my first one.
I am embarrassed to say that I have not heard of her before. I know she was in Candyman too.
The first Candyman. Yep, she's in the first Candyman as well. So all my horror fans out there.
Yeah, I'm not. I was never aware of Talk to Me, so this is definitely going to be something I add to my list to review.
Yeah, if anyone's going to watch any movie she's done, Talk to Me is her most commercial and easily accessible one. I'm sure Harriet is very similar. Eve's Bayou and Caveman's Valentine are a little more niche and a little more kind of artsy. So that's why I chose this one, because I think Talk to Me is something that people can kind of get started into viewing movies by her, and then kind of maybe from there go and watch the other more weirder, broader films. So,
all right, definitely interested. Can't wait to watch Talk to Me. Definitely got to check that out this week. My first pick is, I'm going out with a bang. I'm going all for it. The 2016 film Moonlight, the Oscar winner, multiple Oscar winners. I think it won 3 in total. Directed by Barry Jenkins. Barry Jenkins also wrote it with Taylor Elvin McCraney. Stars Marshala Ali, Naomi Harris, Trevante Rhodes, Alex R. Hibbert, Sharif Earp, Dwayne Saunderson. This is a really, really compelling movie. This reminds me of, I believe it's the way this is structured. If you haven't seen it, it follows the character throughout periods of his life. It's basically, the quintessential 3-act play, basically.
Yep.
Started as a young boy in elementary school, his high school teen years, and then as an adult. Here is the rundown, a little synopsis. Three time periods: young adolescence, mid-teens, young adult, in the life of Black American Sharon. As a child, Sharon lives with his single, crack-addicted mother, Paula, in a crime-ridden part of the Miami neighborhood. Sharon is shy, withdrawn, largely due to his small size and being neglected by his mother, who is more concerned about getting her fixes and satisfying her carnal needs than taking care of her son. Because of these issues, Sharon is bullied. The slurs hurled at him, which he doesn't understand beyond knowing what they are meant to do, which is to be hurtful. Besides his aged Cuban friend Kevin, Sharon is given what little guidance he has in life by the neighborhood drug dealer named Juan, who he's played by Mahershala Ali. I just want to stop right there. Mahershala Ali won Best Supporting Actor for this role, and he is in the film for approximately 25 minutes. Yep. While this is a fascinating character study, I really, really wish they would have focused a little bit more on what happened to Juan. I understand that I believe he was murdered, and supposedly, we could guess, go out on a limb, but possibly a drug deal done wrong. Or
he was a drug dealer, so
I yearned to know more about the Juan character, and I really wish that we would have gotten a little bit more satisfying resolution to what happened. I also think that in the middle chapter in Sharon's teen years, they could have focused a little bit more about how that affected him, because, I mean, obviously we're supposed to, from the way I perceived it, we presume that, he's traumatized and, PTSD. I just really wish they could have taken it a step further and shown what that loss meant, that father-type figure meant. But yeah, a fantastic job by Mahershala Ali. I don't want to say this film loses momentum and steam after that first act is over, but really the third act just really kind of drags for me, and I was kind of not anticipating what was going to happen, but I don't want to use the term disappointment, because it's not that I was disappointed in how the film turned out. Without spoiling anything, I don't want to talk about the ending, because this is obviously Oscar worthy, and people need to see it. That's why I don't really want to talk about how it ended and whatnot, and the resolution and everything, because it's tied up pretty well. I would say a positive ending.
Yes, as far as indie films go, it has a pretty good ending. It doesn't really feel you, in my opinion, it didn't leave me feeling like I was ripped off, with the exception of Mahershala only being in the movie for about, like you said, 20 to 30 minutes. But that was just by design. And I don't know that they expected him to take the what do I want to say? Like the draw of the film kind of goes to him before you even see it, because the talk of Ali's performance was kind of what I think made a lot of people want to watch the movie. So I know for a fact that when I watch the movie, knowing that he gives like a lifetime performance, and I'm like, oh my God, well, this must be amazing. So then when he's not in the movie after the first 30 minutes, you're like, wait, what? Like, that was it? But in defense of the Oscars, supporting actor, that's what a supporting actor role is supposed to be. Anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes, not throughout the entire movie usually. Oddly enough, for his next Oscar, he was basically in the entire film, which is why some people argued he should have been Best Actor, not Best Supporting. Right. But in this particular one, I mean, that is a supporting role. He did, but that's just it. He was able to do so much with so little screen time. That's why it kind of stands out still, even to this day. I've only seen it probably once or twice, and I remember his performance from that time that I saw it.
For me, selfishly, I wanted the movie to continue to focus on that aspect of the relationship, and I'm happy growth and mentor, mentee, father-son type thing. And I know that's not what the film is about. It's not, I didn't make it. It's just my son not being met.
And I think too, with the film, the way it's structured, it's meant to represent how quickly growing up like he did, how quickly things can change. And the fact that he finds a role model, but it's a role model who's involved in the life and a drug dealer. So at any given time, he could be taken out. And that's kind of, it shows the quickness that he had to adapt, I believe.
Right. Well, I love the way that, like, when Sharon asks him about his mother and about him being a drug dealer, and he kind of walks away. It's like, you're dead to me now. And then he's, dead in moving forward.
Literally, yeah.
And going off of that symbolism there of, how Ali's character is symbolically, moved on from the same way Sharon's like, you're dead to me. Don't want to not talk about, the underlying major issue about this, this homosexual character, being tormented before he even knows what it means to be tormented.
Yeah.
So he's ashamed before he even realizes what, being gay, means. It's just tragic. We move on to the second act in his high school where, he's continually harassed and bullied by this group of tormentors, and he has his first romantic experience with Kevin. And then the very next scene, he's being assaulted by Kevin because, Kevin is forced to, make a choice.
Mm-hmm.
He chooses, the easy path, in a sense. Well, there's no real easy path, but the path of least resistance, I guess we could call it.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, we move on to the third phase of the film, a good 10 years later, give or take, and, it's a nice resolution.
Yeah.
I got spend too much time on this because I know we got a ton, but yeah, Barry Jenkins, he goes on to talk about, how much of himself is in this role and how he is Chiron, and how much, of a personal story this is for him.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic job. And he's got some really exciting projects coming up, it looks like. He's got a Lion King prequel that's in pre-production, filming the Underground Railroad TV series, which, Harriet Tubman and, that broad spectrum. I'm very excited to see what he's going to come up with.
Yeah, he's a great director, and he's shown himself pretty early. I mean, I don't know if this was his first movie, but it was his first one he got noticed for. And he obviously, right out the gate, winning the Oscar and stuff. And I believe he won an Oscar for Best Screenplay, I want to say, with the other writer. So, yeah, I mean, he was kind of the darling of Hollywood that night. And before we started the show, we talked about how La La Land was announced Best Picture, and then it was corrected, and Moonlight actually won. That's kind of what it will always be remembered for, I think, was being not mentioned originally by Warren Beatty. Thank you, Warren. I know he apologized for it.
Was handed the wrong envelope.
Yeah, this is true, because it was like Best Director or not director, whatever they won for, because it wasn't director. Might have been, well, yeah, she won for Best Actress, so maybe they just had the same envelope or something.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that we're going on 4 or 5 years since this incident occurred. So
yeah, pretty nuts.
Barry Jenkins did win the Best Adapted Screenplay along with Terrell, Elvin, McCraney.
That's what I thought, yeah.
You are correct, sir.
All right, so I'm going to go on to my next one, my second one, which I'm going to talk about the director Spike Lee, which everybody knows Spike Lee, obviously, at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to talk about a movie that most people don't probably know or realize is out there. And it's
a little film called Do the Right Thing.
Yes. Little film. No. Although Do the Right Thing is a classic and everybody should watch it, I'm going to talk about the movie Bamboozled. Bamboozled is from 2000. It stars, before I get the plot here, it stars Damon Wayans, Savion Glover, who's an actual dancer, tap dancer, Jada Pinkett Smith, Tommy Davidson, Michael Rappaport, Mos Def, Thomas Jefferson Byrd, Paul Mooney, Cannabis, the rapper, also has The Roots in it as well. They play so before I tell you who they play, we'll get into this real quick. Pierre Delacroix, played by Damon Wayans, his real name is Peerless Dothan, is an uptight Harvard-educated African man in the employment of television network CNS. At work, he endures torment from his boss Thomas Dunwitty, a tactless, boorish white man. Not only does Dunwoody use African American vernacular English and the N-word, repeatedly in conversations, he also proudly proclaims that he is more black than Delacroix and that he can use the N-word since he is married to a black woman and has 2 mixed-race children. So this is what Delacroix in the TV business is kind of going up against. And so he's trying to give them something that these racist white people can relate to, because those are his demographic, right? So he creates this show, and it's a minstrel show. Okay? Now, they're not dumb enough to be like, we're going to cast 2 white guys. So they cast 2 black guys, which are Tommy Davidson and Savion Glover. I think they're like friends. They may even be brothers. It's been a while since I've seen it. It's called Mantan, the New Millennium Minstrel Show, is the name of the show they create. And it takes the 2 black actors, played by Davidson and Glover, and throws them in blackface. So this movie has a lot to say. It deals with racial tension. It deals with how black people see themselves and how that comes across in media. While there are a lot of white people that are upset by this show, obviously there are a lot of black people that played by Mos Def. Actually, it's like a kind of like a Black Panther organization that is upset with the fact that these 2 black people are going on TV and doing this, and basically they're dancing. Savion Glover's character is a tap dancer, as he is in real life, and they're basically going on show and tap dancing in blackface for TV. So that obviously doesn't sit well with a lot of people. It deals with a lot of current issues that are happening today. This movie came out 21 years ago. So the fact that there's a lot of stuff, we talk about this all the time, Wayne, there's a lot of stuff in these movies that are still going on to this day. It's kind of crazy when you look at that.
Yeah. One of the things that I remember about Bamboozled, the comic, D.L. Hughley openly criticizes Spike Lee about making this film. I remember as in the mid to late 2000s, he's got a bit about Spike Lee and Bamboozled, and I guess D.L. was not extremely happy with how it turned out, and just the fact that we're talking about this right now, and that's what came to mind about being just judged so harshly.
Yes, it is too, because it's not one of his most loved movies. If you look at it on either IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes, it's got a mid-level score, like 50%. It did suffer a lot of criticism. I think it's one of those movies, though, that has kind of changed over time. And maybe at the time it came out, people didn't see it the way they needed to see it. Because now I own it. I haven't watched it yet. I just bought it recently. There's a brand new Criterion edition Blu-ray of it, which they usually save those. Spike Lee's only other movie that's on Criterion is Do the Right Thing. So that's the type of movies that they saved that edition for. So I think over time it's kind of, people have come around on it maybe a little bit and realized what he was trying to do, and the fact that they're able to see what he was kind of pointing out was happening. And it, when these things come out too, it's always hard, I think, to kind of look at it maybe in a new lens. Maybe I know D.L. Hughley. I'm a huge fan of his. I don't know him personally, obviously, but I could see what he was probably why he was upset about it, because it kind of, on the surface, if you don't actually watch the movie and you look at just the cover box, it's like a very unflattering photo of a man in blackface, and it could send the wrong message, I think, to someone who hasn't seen it. Now, if you see the movie, I think you could kind of understand where he was going with it and what he was trying to show people.
Absolutely. Now, not to cut you off there, I'm looking at the poster on IMDb right now, and it's of a African child with a bow in her hair holding a piece of watermelon. Very rape sensitive, very mocking and degrading. The satire that they're going for in this was misunderstood, and I see a couple reviews that say the same thing. It's kind of reinforcing just the fact that y'all are missing the point.
Yes.
That I think, like you said already, now people are starting to kind of digest it properly, I guess.
Yeah.
Correct terminology, way to approach it. And yeah, I just, for its time and being 21, I think we said, or no, 20.
It was 2000 it came out, so it's 21 years ago.
Gotcha. So, yeah, I mean,
it's been a long time. I think people should kind of discover it or rediscover it if they haven't seen it in a while. I know I haven't seen it in a while, but I watched it quite a few times back in the day when it came out. I was a big fan of this movie. And I never took, I wasn't a big fan of it because of the racial stereotypes. That was never something that really occurred to me. I was a big fan of what it had to say, and I really enjoyed this movie for the political side of it and just kind of showing us another ugly look at America and how we treat certain people. And I think it's something that needed to be said back then, and it needs to be said again. And Spike Lee has always done this. He's always controversial. And most of the times there's a point behind it. And I think with this movie, with Do the Right Thing, with Da 5 Bloods, a lot of his Black Klansmen, he's constantly trying to show people different sides of things. And I think this is just another one that people should go and either revisit or visit for the first time if they haven't seen it. Because, like I said, it is, I think, somewhat of a lesser-known film of his, but it's, I think, almost as important as Do the Right Thing and Black Klansman. So definitely check this one out. If you haven't seen a lot of Spike Lee movies, I highly recommend them. We talked about He Got Game last week. Spike Lee is a phenomenal director. As I get older, I'm starting to realize how innovative he is and how kind of risk-taking he is, especially with something like Da 5 Bloods. And I never really thought of him like that, I guess, because he was always the guy that had the political message in his movies. But really, he does a lot of cool stylistic things, I think, that maybe get overlooked because of the fact that his stories are so engrossing and important that you're really focusing on that. But then when you rewatch the films, you're like, oh, wow, why did he use that music? That was an interesting choice there. Why did he do that edit there? That was interesting. So I think if people go back and look at Spike Lee, they'll actually see that he's up there with some of the great directors of all time, I think. And this is just one of those movies I'd like people to watch.
Very, very powerful. It's one that I have to go back and rewatch, I should say review. I'll have to review and see what I feel about it. I think I need to rewatch. It's been at least 10 years. But I remember the controversy, and like we said. All right. I'm going to move on to my number 2. I am going with the 2014 film Selma, directed by Ava DuVernay.
Yep, Ava DuVernay.
Webb. Let's see. We are starring David Oyelowo as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Cameron Ejogo as Coretta Scott King, Oprah Winfrey as Annie Lee Cooper, Tom Wilkinson plays LBJ, Lyndon B. Johnson, Jim France, Gunnar Jan.
Huge cast. Coleman Domingo's in it, who we just saw in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom.
There's a man named Lee White.
Stephen James plays John Lewis,
yes,
who just passed away recently. Everyone, the politician John Lewis.
Indeed, very, very prominent politician. All right, let me get you to a little bit of a breakdown on this. Here's the storyline. The unforgettable true story chronicles the tumultuous 3-month period in 1965 when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. led a dangerous campaign to secure equal voting rights in the face of violent oppression. The epic march from Selma to Montgomery, in Alabama, obviously, culminated in President Johnson signing the Voting Rights Act of 1965, one of the most significant victories for the civil rights movement. Director Ava DuVernay's Selma tells the story of how the revered leader and visionary Dr. Martin Luther King and his brothers and sisters in the movement prompted change that forever altered history. When we talk about important moments in history, I mean, the civil rights movement is, it's maddeningly infuriating to look back and see what minorities, black people, had to go through, and the lengths that they had to go, and what they had to suffer through. And then in 2020, we see such similarities that's like, what? Have we learned nothing from history? And like, why is it such a challenge that to just view your fellow human as a human being? Like, I don't want to take it down this political path. You and I are obviously, we know where we stand, and we are an equal vision and the wrongs of the world and whatnot. But let me just get back to Selma here. But again, without making this political and going down that path, some of the darkest and saddest pictures of our history often make the most compelling and powerful films. Such is the case with Selma, which takes place in the Civil Rights Movement, during Dr. Martin Luther King's, march.
And so it takes place in 1965, which is during the Selma March, in which 4 little girls were blown up in a church in Selma, Alabama. And MLK wanted to do a demonstration there and show that they were there to support. His idea of... I just watched this movie for the first time on Friday, so it's a little more fresh in my mind. I hadn't put it off for any real reason. I just hadn't watched it yet, and I figured, hey, I knew we were talking about some of these movies coming up. Figure I'll watch it and I'll bring it up regardless if we were going to talk about it or not. And here we are talking about it.
Yes, sir.
And his at least in the movie, his ideology, obviously we all know, is the non-violent one. The way it always goes through history is Malcolm X is the one that promoted violence and Martin Luther King did not. But the way MLK wanted to do it was a non-violent, violent protest, almost to the fact of like, they want the police to react and want the police to attack. That was kind of, at least in this movie, again, I'm not saying this is exactly historical fact. I believe most of it is. And he just wanted, that way it showed people, because there would be cameras there and photos. People, when people want to do stuff like that, people are always going to be like, oh, well, you're just there for the publicity. And like, they say that to him, and he's like, yeah, I know. Like, that's exactly why we're doing this, so that the public can see what happens. And it's a very powerful movie with powerful performances all the way through. David Oyelowo gives a great performance. Should have been nominated that year. He got snubbed. I'm not saying he should have won. I'd have to go back and look at who won again to kind of come up with that opinion. But just
I didn't understand. Like, there's some, like, when you read like the reviews, some people are criticizing him, saying that this is kind of a miscast and he doesn't make the character in. And I just don't know. Like I saw it a couple of times. That's why I'm talking. I don't know if we were not watching the same film, because I think he portrays MLK very well, and I instantly want watching and know more and hear the man speak. Mm-hmm. But what the other notable performance, Tim Roth, who played George Wallace, the infamous governor,
horrible piece of trash.
Yeah, just awful and just ruthless performance.
Yes.
By.
He did. I will say his accent completely reminded me of Kevin Spacey from A Time to Kill. I'm like, I know that voice. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Kevin Spacey's accent from A Time to Kill. How'd that make it in this movie? But the performance itself was very good. You don't like him, and you're not supposed to.
Gosh.
I do think it's funny, Wayne. I brought this to my wife, because even LBJ, even though he's a Democrat, you really don't like him either. And I'm like, it's funny that they get these British actors to come in and play these roles, because I'm sure they're just like, wow, yeah, I'll do it. You guys have horrible people to play. It's great. Like, where Americans are like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be tied to this racist governor from Alabama. Tim Roth doesn't care because he's from England, so whatever. But I just always think that's interesting that a lot of times they're cast to play our villains in those movies. But yeah, I mean, it's such a great movie. I think people definitely should check it out, and it's got just an all-star black cast, essentially. I mean, there's so many people in this movie I was watching. I was like, oh, there's that guy and that guy. And another guy that'll come up in our, or come up in about two of my movies in in our review for next week is Lakeith Stanfield. And he plays Lee, the man who, I believe Lee is his last name, Jimmy Lee. And he's the one that is murdered straight up by police, like shot in the chest in a restaurant. And they get away with it. Like, that's just crazy that shit happened. And it's just it's a great movie. It's very powerful. It's very emotional. It really will make you think. It'll make you sad and depressed. So, and Wayne, anything else you want to add about it? I know it's your choice, so I'll let you go back to it. One
of those things where it's good just to have conversation about. It's a great film, and it has a great cast, great director, and that's why we chose it. I chose it. So.
Yeah, no, Ava DuVernay, I think, is going to do some great things. She already has, and I think she's going to do even more as she gets out there and kind of creates her own journey, if you will. All right, so my third movie, I've got 4 movies this week, just so if people are wondering why I'm calling this my third and not my last. Fourth one's kind of a bonus, but I wanted to talk about it anyway. It's a horror film. And it's one of my new favorite directors, Jordan Peele. Jordan Peele has only done 2 movies so far, and it's Get Out and Us. I'm going to talk about Get Out today, his first one, which was nominated for a bunch of Oscars, won him best screenplay Oscar. It stars Daniel Kaluuya, Allison Williams, Bradley Whitford, Caleb Landry Jones, Stephen Root, Catherine Keener, and also, as I said, Lakeith Stanfield. In this one, he plays one of the people that Chris, played by Daniel Kaluuya, sees at a party. Kind of recognizes him, but the guy doesn't know where he is. So, Get Out is a movie about a man named Chris and his girlfriend who are going back to meet her family, and he's kind of weirded out. Like, he's like, meeting the family. He's the black guy meeting an all-white family. He's not sure how that's going to go. There's a lot of micro-racism kind of things that are brought up early on in the movie. The fact that the dad's like, oh, I voted twice for Obama, so I'm totally not racist. Like, that's I would have voted for a third term. That's a running joke in the movie. So Chris gets there, and almost right off the bat, things are weird. There's 2 servants that work in the house, and they're strange. They don't seem normal. And that's Marcus Henderson and Betty Gabriel. And they're just act weird. They talk weird. They look at him strange. It's just he gets this weird feeling right away. And you as the viewer are given like this weird, like, oh, there's something wrong with those people.
I'm going to jump in real quick. The misdirection with the police officer in the beginning really sets the tone.
It does. It does. And, I just watched it again, and the crazy part about that too, when you go back and realize, because it was like a cracked article or something. This isn't really giving anything away, people. This is maybe just something if you didn't know, that when she convinces the police officer not to write his name down or take his driver's license, it's not because she's standing up against racism. It's so that there's no record of him ever being anywhere but where he came from. That's it. And that's the crazy part when you think about it, that they planned it that far ahead that she was like, no, the police cannot have his name. They cannot take his driver's license. So I'm going to get us out of this. Like, that's a crazy part to think about. And I didn't really think about it until I just saw it recently. I was like, oh my God, that's right. It's such a good movie. So people, if you're not familiar with it, basically what's going on is they're stealing black people for their strength and their abilities, and they're taking dying white people. And these are spoilers, people. So if you haven't seen it, stop, go watch it, come back and listen, or just skip ahead in the podcast. But if you haven't seen this movie, where have you been the last few years? And they're putting like their parts of their brain inside the black people's brains and kind of hiding the black person away. But then there's certain things that happen that can make that person come out and realize that they're stuck in this body. And that happens with Lakeith Stanfield's character, where he takes a photo and the camera flash, and it's crazy. It's such a good movie. It was so good watching it this time. It's also very gory. That I think caught some people off guard, because it's a very kind of quiet, subtle horror film, and then all of a sudden it turns very gory and very bloody the last like 20 minutes or so. So good though.
I thought you said it gets very boring. I'm like, what?
No, not boring. If you heard boring, I meant bloody. Bloody, bloody, bloody. Which everyone, if you listen to me, you know that I love those type of films. What's great about this movie is it was nominated for Best Picture, and it's gory as hell. And that's what I was excited about. This movie, The Shape of Water, Silence of the Lambs, movies like that getting Best Picture nominations, winning Best Picture like Silence of the Lambs and Shape of Water are huge for me. Because those are big genre-type movies and genre stories that don't always get recognized at big award shows like that. So when Get Out got recognized, that to me was just a great moment in film history. And the fact that Jordan Peele got up and accepted his Oscar for Best Screenplay was incredible. It is really just a sight to see for any horror fan, because horror movies do not get recognition like this. And I also hate, too, and this is within the horror community, people always say, oh, well, this one only got recognized because it had a political point of view to it or whatever. Most horror films are political. And if you miss it, that's only on you. Night of the Living Dead is one of the most political horror films ever made, and most people miss the point. So the fact that a political horror movie you got nominated, that's what most horror movies are. Political, people, that's what they are. I always hate when people are like, People Under the Stairs recently, it's getting a remake. Jordan Peele's producing it. They're going to make it political and woke. And everyone's like, all the true horror fans that understood that movie were like, did you not watch the original film? It's like one of the most political horror films ever made. So politics and horror have always been there. And this is one of the biggest and best movies to watch for that reason. And it really, again, it sits with today. It was only made 4 years ago. So it really speaks to what is happening in this world today. Jordan Peele has his finger on the pulse, I think. I can't wait for what he does next. Just everything in this film that he did, I thought was fantastic. Wayne, you look like you're about to say something.
Yeah, man. I was just waiting for you to finish because, I have the tendency to jump in and cut you off, which, again, I apologize for. The other symbolism that I just love, and it's subtle, and if you're not really paying attention to it, you miss it. When she has the bowl of milk with the white and all of the colors separated.
Yep.
Well, kind of thinking and done.
That I did notice when I first watched it, yeah. She's eating, for people to give you a visual, she's eating Fruit Loops, which obviously, if you know Fruit Loops, they're all different colors. And she's dipping them in milk instead of pouring the milk in the cereal, which is, first off, just a really creepy way to eat cereal in the first place. But then obviously the racial undertones make it even creepier.
Yeah, without the racial undertones. If you eat like that, you might get...
Well, and let's be honest, that's when she goes into crazy white girl mode. She's got the hair pulled back in the ponytail. She's wearing the white like sweater. So she looks very Children of the Corn-like anyway, and then she's sitting there and dunking Fruit Loops into a big glass of milk. Very weird. Great movie, though. Great cast. Daniel Kaluuya was great in this movie. He was nominated for it. We are going to be reviewing his new movie next week, Judas and the Black Messiah. I'm looking forward to that as well. Also starring him and Lakeith Stanfield. But, Wayne, I'll let you get to your last one before I get to my bonus one. Go ahead.
All right. So, I have been, I'm going to switch gears a little bit here. My last film was very, serious, very, poignant. I'm going completely opposite direction. I am going with 1995's Friday, directed by F. Gary Gary, starring Ice Cube, Chris Tucker, Nia Long, Thomas Lewis Jr., John Witherspoon, Anna Maria Horsford, Regina King, Paula Jai Parker, Faison Love. The cast in this movie, I am only like a quarter of the way down. It's like famous. Tony Cox,
Bernie Mac,
yeah, Miss Thomas Parker. All right. So if y'all don't know this film, All right, let me just give you the storyline rundown here. It's Friday, and Craig Jones is unemployed, having been fired yesterday on his day off. This has led to trouble with Smokey supplier Big Worm, who wants his money or his product back. His product being marijuana. Weed. A dog. Ah! There's so much about this film. There are so many one-liners. Just comedic gold. But really, for the longest time, I would just watch this for its comedic value, for just laugh, to disconnect. You know, this was something that we would always put on just to, get the, pre-gaming, getting ready to go out on Friday or Saturday night. Friday. See the connection. Okay. So, basically, Ice Cube is Craig Jones. Chris Tucker plays Smokey. They are a duo living in, the Oakland, Los Angeles area.
I believe so, yeah.
California. It is the mid-'90s. Let's see here. How to really break down and talk about this movie? It's a comedy.
Yep.
And it's got,
It's one of those films that's set in a single day.
Yeah.
Friday, obviously. And it's about kind of Craig loosening up a little bit, I would say. He's a little more uptight than Smokey is. And
he's got some morals. He's, there's a scene where the Smokey character and the Debo character break into a neighbor's house to see if they can find some stuff. That's not who Craig is. He's more upstanding and morally straight.
He's very timid, too. Yeah. Very kind of anxious a lot, I would say. Not wanting to get in trouble and stuff like that. And it kind of, the whole movie's about him kind of coming out of his shell. And weed is kind of a center point of that, I think, right. In a way.
And for the, as you guys can tell, I'm kind of struggling to talk about this movie because, for the longest time, I've just viewed this as just like a one-liner comedy slapstick. It's like Chris Tucker's like, it is, outlandish, crazy stuff. You got Big Worm, it's the Big Perm.
Big Perm! Big Worm!
Selling other items from that. You got the Debo character.
Played by the late Tiny Lister.
Yep, rest in peace. Just ruling the neighborhood with an iron fist, taking at will anything that he wants.
It's mine now, homie. Yeah, he's so good.
The scene where we're introduced to Debo, everybody, Craig and Smokey are hiding all their valuables because they don't want him to take it, stuff like that. Let's see. Let me see. Where am I here? John Wick's character, Mr. Jones, the patriarch of the family, is a animal control officer. Just outlandish and crazy. He likes to... One of the craziest things about Mr. Jones, he will have very important conversations with you while he is on the throne in the bathroom.
It's such a crazy film, and it really is something to kind of you got to watch it. You got to watch it several times because it's hilarious, and a lot of it is about the scenes. There's certain scenes that you got to keep watching over and over again. Mr. Jones, where he's basically giving Craig a life lesson while he's taking a dump, which is also gross but also hilarious all at the same time. And he's spraying as he's talking to him. The whole don't go in there for about 45 minutes. Yeah. It's just the fact that he makes him eat the cereal with the water on it. So gross. Like there's so many good moments in this movie, so many good one-liners. Ironically enough, I got to use the one-liner this year or last year, Wayne, when we got laid off from Feld, and it was a Friday, and it was my day off. So, of course, which then my parents said, "Well, you didn't get fired; you got laid off." I'm like, "Okay, Mom, that the joke isn't laid off. The joke is I got fired on my day off."
It's like apples to oranges.
Right, exactly. Well, they're trying to be, the positive. Well, you didn't get fired. I'm like, yeah, okay. I got it. Anyway.
Again, I love this movie, and it's hard to talk about it and just, to make any semblance of, what the story is about it. Like, it's a comedy. It's a one-liner fest. It's great. But I just want to focus on F. Gary real quick here and just list some of the other films that he has directed and been associated with. The man, when you used to go up to somebody, it's like, hey, you see the new F. Gary film that's coming out? I guarantee you that 95% of them will look at you and go, who?
Yes.
List of a couple of just some films that he's directed. Law Abiding Citizen, Be Cool, Fate of the Furious, the latest Men in Black, International, A Man Apart, The Italian Job. He directed Outcast video for Miss Jackson.
Straight Outta Compton. He did Straight Outta Compton, which is a great movie.
Yeah. One of the best entertainment music biopics, I think, that's been done in the last 30 years. I mean, we a while back, a few months ago, we did
the Rock movies where we mentioned that it was an honorable mention.
Exactly. So
yeah, he's had a long career, a really great career. Set It Off was another one that he did that was really good.
Looks like early 90s his career started out, making videos for Ice Cube, Cypress Hill, Queen Latifah, Outkast, Dr. Dre. I mean,
yeah, and also Friday, written by Ice Cube. It was his baby. It's kind of led him to be in charge of his career since then. That gave him the freedom to do so. Not many actors get to do that right out the gate. I mean, I know he had done other movies, and we'll talk about one of them coming up here in one of our other segments. But to kind of do Friday and then be able to kind of write your own path after that's pretty impressive. And that was a great thing that Ice Cube was able to do, and he was able to bring his friend F. Gary Gray on board to help him do that. And F. Gary Gray, again, like we said, has had a very long career due to the success of Friday and how it kind of branched off. It wasn't just a black movie. It was a movie that everybody enjoyed and everybody loved seeing. And I think that was huge back then. But yeah, go ahead.
I said Gary a few times. I apologize. I have words kind of switch on me sometimes, so I apologize for any errors in saying.
No worries. I think people get it.
Director's names. My apologies.
All right. So before I talk about my bonus movie, I want to talk about other movies to watch. Do the Right Thing by Spike Lee. Black Klansman, we kind of already talked about those. The Black Panther by Ryan Coogler. Also Creed by Ryan Coogler. Also Fruitvale Station by Ryan Coogler. 3 really great movies. Let's see. Jordan Peele's Us, which I did mention as well. Denzel Washington, Fences, we talked about last week. The Great Debaters, Antoine Fisher. Tyler Perry, if you're a fan of his, he's got a lot of movies out there. Let's see, Steve McQueen, the one that as we were talking about Selma, I'm like, we probably should have talked about 12 Years a Slave. 12 Years a Slave is a great flippin' movie. Very depressing, really good though. Dee Reese did Mudbound for Netflix, also a great movie. Robert Townsend did a lot of African-American movies back in the day. Meteor Man, people may remember. Classic. Melvin Van Peebles, Mario Van Peebles, Forrest Whitaker. Ernest Dickerson directed a bunch of movies. We've talked about him before because I've watched some of the things that he's done recently. Demon Knight. There's just a lot of movies from black directors out there that I think people should kind of hunt down and see. And I think they'll enjoy them, a lot of them. So my bonus one for this week, I'll be real quick on it, is Sorry to Bother You from 2018, directed by Boots Riley, starring Lakeith Stanfield, Tessa Thompson, Jermaine Fowler, Omari Hardwick, Terry Crews, Patton Oswalt, David Cross, Danny Glover, Stephen Ewan, and Armie Hammer. It is a movie about a young black man, Lakeith Stanfield, who's broke, living with his uncle in his garage, and also living with his girlfriend, who Detroit is her name. And he starts working for this telemarketer company. who also are the same company that like own this. It's somewhat in the future. So there's this company that like if you go and live in their little rooms, you could work for them for basically free, but they give you like free room and board. So it's basically modern day slavery. And that's kind of like what people, not just black people, everybody in the movie, whoever's poor, that's kind of one of their options they're left to do. So like he's considering this. But then he starts working for this telemarketing company, and he's okay at it. You know, he does his normal voice, and Danny Glover's character is like, well, man, you got to use your white voice. And he's like, what are you talking about? And so he does kind of like a nasally voice. But so then what ends up happening is he ends up meeting Omari Hardwick's character, who works on like the top floor, and he's a head honcho of this telemarketing company. They cast Patton Oswalt and David Cross as the voices, the white voices, which if you know who they are, probably pretty perfect for just standard white guy voice. And so when Lakeith Stanfield talks, he's Patton Oswalt when he's on the phone with people, and it's freaking hilarious. It's a very political movie. This movie is so nuts and crazy that I don't even want to give away what happens, because I believe you could watch it on Hulu, I think, or Amazon Prime, one of those. It's a great freaking movie. I got to see it in theaters when it came out down here in Florida over the summer in 2018, and it was an experience. I'll tell you that. I wish I could say what happens, but I don't want to spoil it. He gets kind of like entwined in this big money-making thing. He wants to be rich just like everybody else, so he starts making all this money. He forgets his friends, he forgets his family, and he's just focused on the cash. But then he starts realizing that this company's into some bad shit and some underground experimental stuff, and it comes down to whether he wants to expose them or not. It's got a very 80s avant-garde crazy feel to it. It feels like something like Killer Clowns from Outer Space, but it's much more political and not as funny, but it is funny too, because it is considered a comedy. Wayne, have you heard of this film?
I have not. I'm actually trying to look it up right now. What's the title again?
Sorry to Bother You.
Sorry.
Lakeith Stanfield's it's him on the front with a big bandage on his forehead.
No, I have not. And I'm
telling you, man, it's so weird and crazy that it needs to be seen. I wanted to talk about this movie, but Boots Riley's only made one movie, so I felt bad like putting him with the other three directors I talked about, who all have other stuff to go kind of watch, and where he just has this one film so far. I believe he's a musician too, so that's where he kind of comes from. But he made this movie. It was kind of the talk of the town back in 2018 when it came out over the summer. But yeah, it's really, really good, and I really think people should watch it. Yeah, it's out there, and it's a movie that people should talk about. All right, so we are going to move into our review
of the week.
And this week we did a brand new Netflix movie called Malcolm and Marie. Last week we reviewed a movie with Denzel Washington. This week we review a movie with his son in it. And it also stars Zendaya. It is directed by her showrunner of Euphoria, Sam Levinson. Written by Levinson, starring Zendaya and John David Washington. That is it. Those are the only two people in this movie. The premise, very short here. Film director Malcolm Elliott returns home from his film premiere with his girlfriend Marie Jones. I don't know if they say her last name. They definitely say his last name in the movie, so I didn't even know her last name was Jones. But anyway, the relationship is tested when they discuss the film, their lives, the film industry, and society. It's a movie about an argument, essentially.
It's an argument. It's a conversation about many arguments, and I'm sorry just to jump in here. It's like if I ever was in a relationship with someone and we had this many arguments in this many different rooms of the house in such a close sequence, I would really have to evaluate what I'm doing in this relationship.
Yes. Okay, so this is a movie. I'll start off with what my thoughts going into this movie were. A lot of people were talking about Zendaya's performance and how she was going to get nominated. She didn't. So the Oscars haven't come out yet, the nominations, but for the other two major ones that just came out, she did not get nominated. And so I'm expecting like this tour de force movie, and I was a little let down. And I was a little exhausted by the end of it. I don't know how you felt, Wayne, but all the arguing, it really kind of took it out of me. I was just like, geez, man.
I had to stop watching just to re-energize because I was so beaten down by the back and forth. It's like I jokingly said off camera, or before we got started, Ricky Jarrett done lost his damn mind.
Exactly. Yeah, it was... Like, when it got to the scene, so Rebecca she didn't start watching it with me, but she came home and I was still watching it. I think she was making dinner, and it was the scene where he read the review, and he was like going crazy, and she's just listening, she's standing there, and she's like, this guy is nuts. She's like, this relationship needs to be over, because these people should not be together. And I'm like, yes, that is a true statement. It's uncomfortable to watch at times. There are a lot of times where I felt like it was going to turn like abusive. I mean, it does not, so don't worry about that. If you want to watch this movie, I'm not going to really praise it. I don't think it did what they wanted it to do necessarily. I thought the performances were pretty good though. Overall, I thought the script was maybe a bit lacking. There wasn't maybe as much. The stakes weren't nearly as high as they were making them, I don't think. Right. You know what I mean? Does that make sense to you, Wayne? You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, my biggest things was I not so much the female lead, but the male lead. It's like, oh, did somebody say something that you didn't like, or your feelings hurt? Poor successful.
Right. Yeah. Right. And
And I get, that could very well be my position where I am currently unemployed, which, it's fine. I'm a bum, whatever. I'm just kidding. Well, maybe, bum, whatever. But yeah, it's like you just had a successful debut film, and you're mad that, well, let me backtrack right now, because just hearing myself say that, it's like he has every right to not be happy with the way his film is perceived, with the amount of work that he put into it. But it's just, for me, it's like, enjoy your success, man, because I would kill to have that kind of success right now.
Right, exactly. Well, and I mean, it is important, too, to note that this is a conversation he's having in the comfort of his own private residence or whatever, where they're staying at the moment. So he's not telling this to anybody other than the woman that he cares about. But it still comes off as a bit, and even she brings it up, very arrogant. The fact that he's ripping this woman apart for her positive review. Which was kind of hilarious. There were some times where I chuckled here and there. So they got me a few times. It just, first off, it should have been shorter. If you're going to do a movie like this, you need to stick to an hour and 20, hour and 30 minutes at most. And it also, it took the idea of that one scene in A Marriage Story, which I just need to say that, and I'm sure everyone knows what I'm talking about, which was maybe like a 15-minute scene, which was a very powerful and amazing scene. And then it stretches that into like an hour and 46 minutes. And it was just a bit rough to watch. I don't think it was as well thought out as they thought it was. Like I said, some of the way they got into the arguments were not... So I couldn't see that happening in real life, like it going to that extreme. Or if it did, then like you said, Wayne, like if someone acted like that as I was with them, this relationship would be over. So like
people who have acted like that, it's like, this is not going to work. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
When making the mac and cheese, and I've apologized to you 100 times in the theater. You squeezed my hand. He said it's fine, and she's like, yeah, well, now I changed my mind. It's like, oh, God. I've had craziness in my life like that, but if I wanted to be a part of an hour and a half of arguing, I'd talk politics with my family.
Right, exactly. And I guess, too, that's another way to put it, too. Like, we've had such a stressful 4 years with everybody disagreeing and all this shit. Do we really need a movie that's about basically an hour and 45-minute argument? that really doesn't have a resolution in the end. It was.
My other is it's like it's 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning now. Go to bed, sleep on it, and then it's both overtired. You're both cranky. Go take a nap.
Exactly. It was just it was a bit much, I think, and I hate saying that because I really wanted to like it. It didn't really do it for me. Hopefully other people will enjoy it, and I know other people, like some critics did and some critics didn't. I think it's like 56% on Rotten Tomatoes right now. It just didn't do it for me, and I was disappointed because I really like both of them, and I wanted to really like this movie. I just couldn't find enough for me to really recommend it, I would say.
Again, I'm going to reference. I'm waiting for the Rock's character from Ballers to call and be like, Ricky, we got a problem.
But they need you in Oakland or Las Vegas. They need a new wide receiver. So I mean, there you have our opinion on it, guys. If you want to check it out, it is on Netflix right now. Go and give it a watch, and let us know what you think. Maybe you really liked it. I really like John David Washington, and I'm looking forward to his future because I think it is very bright, and I think he's going to be a very successful actor when it's all said and done. This movie just isn't one that I would say go out and watch necessarily. All right, so moving on to Gone But Not Forgotten. This week we had the unfortunate passing of Dustin Diamond, who played Screech on Saved by the Bell. He was only 44, diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer about 3 weeks before he died. Very sad, very young. Hal Holbrook, the dad from Sons of Anarchy, also nominated for the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for Into the Wild, dead at 95. Christopher Plummer died at 91 because of a fall. He won his Oscar for The Beginners with Ewan McGregor, but he was also in Sound of Music. Most people know him from that. He was in Knives Out, Must Love Dogs, All the Money in the World.
Him and Must Love Dogs.
Rebecca, that's how I told. So I told Rebecca he died. She's like, "Who's that?" I go, "The dad from Must Love Dogs." She's like, "Oh yeah, oh that's sad." I'm like, "Yeah." So we've seen that movie quite a bit. So that was sad. Trisha Noble from the Star Wars prequel. She played Natalie Portman's mom. She just passed away at 76. And boxer Leon Spinks, who famously fought Muhammad Ali, passed away at 67. But to get into our main topic today, it is John Singleton, African-American director. Most people would know him as the director of Boys in the Hood. He was nominated for Best Director for that, becoming at age 24 the first African-American and youngest person to have ever been nominated for that award. So right out the gate, his first movie, a hit. He gets Oscar nominated, first black director to be Oscar nominated, youngest director in history to be nominated. And his career after that, I don't think he ever reached those heights again. But he had a very long and successful career until he unfortunately passed away after a short illness. I believe he had a stroke and then went into a coma, and he just didn't wake up. And it's very sad. I've always been a big fan of his. And we're going to talk about some of his movies. So we'll start with Boys in the Hood. I mean, classic right away. Cuba Gooding Jr., Ice Cube, and the other gentleman who's on Morris Chestnut, who's on The Resident, which is a show I watch on Fox. Great movie. Larry Fishburne, before he was known as Lawrence. Just a fantastic movie about a young man played by Cuba Gooding Jr. trying to get out of the hood, get to college, become a success. Everybody's trying to help him. Morris Chestnut is his friend, Ricky, and they're both like, they've got the ticket. Like Chris Rock. Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character is extremely smart. Ricky's character is a very talented athlete, so they feel like those are their two guys that they want to push them out. Ice Cube Doughboy plays Ricky's brother, and they're trying to like keep them alive, essentially, so they could get out of the hood and have a successful life. And it's a very touching and emotional film. It's gut-wrenching all the way through. Really great performances from Cuba Gooding Jr., Morris Chestnut, Ice Cube, Larry Fishburne. Just a fantastic film. Great first start for the late John Singleton. Wayne, your thoughts on this film?
You nailed it on the head. Like, I remember watching this probably when I was about 15 and just being like blown away. Like, holy cow, what is this? Like, what is this life? Like, so that was probably in like 96. This is probably right after Tupac and Biggie were killed.
It came out in 91, but
and when I first saw it.
When you first saw it, okay.
So, just, we had all this going on in the news. I watched this film, and I'm just like, what the hell? It being, a suburban sheltered youth, just being exposed to this type of narrative, like what's going on. It's just amazing. Like, I remember, just wanting more from, like, immediately wanting to watch this again and just continue to soak up the acting, the performances, the tragedy that ensues. It's just like one of those. It's one of these quintessential movies that like kind of makes you stop and think about just life. I guess I don't know. Sorry, that's so random and like kind of a put off comment, but that's like how I felt when I saw this for the first time.
No, for sure.
Who's using a power?
Huh?
I just heard a power saw.
Yeah, it's a neighbor across the street. Yeah, I mean, it's a very powerful film, and if you haven't seen Boys in the Hood, you definitely need to check it out. Some of his other ones are pretty good too. Poetic Justice, starring Tupac and Janet Jackson, pretty good drama.
I want not to shortchange this one. What are your thoughts on the Four Brothers, the 2005 film?
Oh, so we're jumping ahead. All right, we'll jump back in a minute, but we'll get to Four Brothers because that's one I've seen frequently because my wife loves it.
Want to just wait and go in chronological?
No, it's okay. No, we could jump right to Four Brothers. Four Brothers is a film directed by John Singleton, obviously, written by other people, starring Mark Wahlberg, Tyrese, Andre 3000, and Garrett Hedlund. Chiwetel Ejiofor also in it as the villain, and he's fantastic. I loved this movie when it came out. I thought it was great. It's a fun, gritty action film that apparently in Detroit there are no police that do any policing whatsoever, as people just get randomly murdered throughout this entire film. Which is kind of why we love it. It's not, I wouldn't necessarily call it a good movie, Wayne, but it's a fun, just action flick. Very gritty, very bloody. I
loved this movie when it came out, and as it's aged and as I've watched it, I'm like, this kind of
there's some cringy things in it. I was noticing when we were watching it the other day. It's still a fun movie, but
those hockey scenes,
yeah,
everybody can skate really, really well.
Yes, this is very true.
Chase scene in the snow.
Oh my god, that whole scene was like, I was watching it the other day and I'm like, there's no way that car stays on the road. There's no way. But like I said, that being said, it wasn't a very well reviewed movie. So when I saw it in theaters years ago, I knew what I was in for. I still loved it for all of its flaws and all of its goofiness.
This almost qualifies as one of our awful reviews.
Almost, yeah. Because it really, like I said, I wouldn't necessarily, especially the last few movies he did, I would not consider good. But that one was at least very entertaining. I enjoyed that movie. Jumping back to 95, though, is probably one of my favorites. And it's Higher Learning. Written and directed by Singleton, starring Omar Epps and Christy Swanson, Michael Rappaport, Ice Cube. Again, Jennifer Connelly, Tyra Banks, Regina King, Cole Hauser, Busta Rhymes, Lawrence Fishburne, Andrew Bernarski, Adam Goldberg, Carrie Ver. Just this has such a huge cast. Morris Chestnut is in it, just as an uncredited role. It's such a good movie. It's about going to college in the 90s, and it stars Omar Epps and Michael Rappaport. And they're like two different guys from two different sides of the tracks. Like one is young black kid going to college and wanting to like be in like black fraternities and stuff. And then you have Michael Rappaport's character who is confused on where he belongs. He's been picked on, so he ends up joining up with the neo-Nazis, and that it's just this huge big thing that ends up leading to this big clash between everybody else and the neo-Nazis. And it's such a great film, I think. I don't think some people liked it as much as I did. I really love this movie. I haven't seen it in a while. I was going to try to watch it this week, but I just didn't have time. Such a good flick. If you haven't seen it, you need to check it out. I also really like his next one after this was Rosewood, which was a black Western starring Don Cheadle and Ving Rhames. This is another one similar to Four Brothers, Wayne. I wouldn't necessarily go out and call it a good movie, but it's an awesome movie. It's basically like Don Cheadle leads like a slave uprising against all the white slave owners. And so it's a revenge movie. It's awesome. It involves Ving Rhames basically being like a cowboy going around killing white people. It's great. So if you're into that kind of stuff, kind of blaxploitation stuff, I definitely recommend checking out Rosewood.
After he gets into a couple of movies that are really, really, really good.
Yes, I concur. Less talked about sequel Shaft, starring Samuel L. Jackson and Christian Bale and Mekhi Phifer. Great flick, underrated. People don't talk about it enough. Such a good movie, and I just love how they kept that 70s flair to it as well. I think some of my favorite scenes, because I saw it with a friend of mine. I saw it with a bunch of people, but one of the girls that went with us, and she was like, well, that's not realistic. When there was like the car crash. I'm like, but that's the point. That's what's hilarious. That he gets out of this car that Busta Rhymes wrecked. Everybody is injured except for Shaft. That's the hilarious part of the movie, that he gets out unscathed. And it was just a fantastic movie. Jeffrey Wright is Peoples Hernandez. Amazing villain. Fantastic. I got to meet the man in New York and take a photo with him during one of his plays. That was always a highlight to me. And a lot of my excitement was because it was like 2001. So I'm like, freaking Peoples Hernandez, man. Yes. And it's just a great role for him. Great movie. Christian Bale is such a cretin.
Talk about how hateable Christian Bale is. Just the pompous, my mom.
It's the year after American Psycho. So he basically took that character and put him into Shaft. It's basically what happened.
Yeah, after he bludgeons Mekhi Phifer.
Oh, God, yeah.
Rhythm. Like, are you kidding? You did not just say that. What?
Yeah, it's a nuts movie. It's really good. I think people should revisit that one for sure. And then you're right, the next one, 2001, he did Baby Boy. Great movie. I'm not a huge Tyrese fan, but he did well in this movie. Taraji P. Henson is in this one as well. She was in Four Brothers. Ving Rhames again. And Omar Epps as well is in this one. And then you also have Snoop Dogg. And Snoop Dogg plays another gangbanger that they take out their anger on, basically, because he ratted on him or something. They got to get him back, so they go and they get him back.
Yep.
It's a really good movie. I haven't seen it in a while. I really liked Baby Boy. It wasn't as well received like Boys in the Hood when it came out. It kind of plays as almost a quasi-sequel to that.
Yeah.
But it was a good movie, I think. I think it was a good movie. His last two after that, though, or not last two, but Too Fast, Too Furious.
It was a product. That was a product, I think, more of just rush to get the next one out and let's get a name director. And yeah, it was more. He became a director for hire after that, after Baby Boy. Too Fast, Too Furious, Four Brothers, and then Abduction with Taylor Lautner. Those were movies that he didn't write. The only one he hadn't written before then was Rosewood. Every other thing he did, he wrote. So he kind of became a director for hire and a producer at that point. And he didn't really do a lot of films. When you look at it, his career, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 movies in his almost 30-year career. So Was a producer on Hustle and Flow in 2005,
Yeah.
Black Snake 2006. Two films that I really, really appreciated and enjoyed.
For sure.
But again, the role versus, being the director.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Since the producer is kind of like the guy. So.
Yes. He's also had some cameos in some of his movies too, so that's always very cool. Yeah, he was kind of an underrated director, I think, and I really think people should give him his credit. Again, it was sad that he passed away when he did. I think he probably still had some left in the tank, some good movies that he would have done. So it was just, I wanted to talk about him, especially since we were talking about black directors today. And I think he deserves to be mentioned with the rest of them, just for creating Boys in the Hood. Let alone, just that movie alone gives him a seat at the table.
I mean, he passed away at 51. That is so young, especially now that we are only maybe 12 years away from.
Right, exactly. So it's pretty nuts to think about, and when you put your own life in perspective like that. But yeah, I mean, again, it sucks. John, we hope you're resting in peace wherever you are. We miss your movies, and it sucks. So we're going to move on that down note to the awfully good or just plain awful movie of the week. And
yes, sir.
It is a movie. It's a movie, people, called Point Doom. I can't even find it on Wikipedia. That's how great this movie is. Let me see. Point Doom movie. It stars the great, if you will, Richard Grieco, Angie Everhart, the lovely Ice-T, another Andrew Dice Clay movie, Zach Galligan from the Gremlins movies, John Enos III, who I don't even know, and it's introducing Jennifer Odell. It's from about 2000 or 2001, I believe. I think it was made in, it says 99 on Google, but I'm pretty sure on Amazon it says like 2000 or 2001.
It definitely had a mid-80s vibe.
It totally did, but it was not a mid-80s movie. First off, just off the bat, Richard Grieco is god-awful in this movie. I don't understand why they cast him in the role that they did. He wasn't very good for that role, even.
Let us not forget the Skid Row frontman, Sebastian Bach.
Yes.
His first acting roles, I believe.
And what's great is it looked like he walked off set as an extra of Rockstar. That's all I thought of. I was like, I wonder if he was by the Rockstar set, because they were shot like around the same time. I'm like, Now, obviously, I know he's a rock singer, and that's probably how he dresses on a daily basis. That's just the feeling I got.
He looks like a poser.
Yeah, he does. That's what he looked like, because he was so out of place in that movie. Like, they're supposed to be this like white gang. Like, he doesn't look like he would fit into that. Him and the other guy that was with him too. They both looked like rock star rejects.
Yeah, they look like Sons of Anarchy hang around rejects.
Yes. So I'll give you the plot that there is for this movie. Is Richard Grieco is like a love-scorned movie agent. He's looking for love, and that's very evident in like
the wrong places.
Yes, he's in a strip club, so that should tell you something. And he meets this woman who is a waitress. She's not a stripper, and Andrew Dice Clay warns him to stay away from her. I do appreciate Andrew Dice Clay in this movie more so than I did in our other movie, No Contest. I thought he was more Dice in this movie, which was better than his last movie that we reviewed him in. There was one scene too towards the end of the movie where it felt like him and Grieco were trying to out Italian each other, and I thought that was kind of hilarious. So, of course, this woman's boyfriend is one of the leaders of the gang who decided to rip off his own gang by robbing him and Zach Galligan from Gremlins, who's Spider. So Spider and Blackie, which is a really unsettling name for this character because he's not black, and I don't know where they got it from. So Spider and Blackie are the two villains, essentially. And they double-cross their own members, which they might be an Aryan Nation gang. They might not be. They never really say. They're a motorcycle gang.
Very could be whatever you want them to be. They're a gang and they do stuff and they rob drugs and how you doing?
and they blame it on Ice-T. My favorite part is because, like, so Ice-T, Ice-T dies in the movie. And the way he dies, I thought was kind of hilarious because they frame him to be the one that stole the money from the crew. And then, like, when they kill him, and then the main white guy, Timmy, or whatever his name is, I forget his name, when he takes the bag out of the front seat, and he's just like, he didn't do it. And then they just drop the bag, and they leave, after they just killed, like, 5 people. Like, I'm just like, wait, what? Like, that's it? He didn't do it? No, like, oops, my bad. It's just like, oh, well, on to the next one. And then, it's just... It's like this movie, like when you look at the cover box, you're like, oh, so it's a motorcycle movie. It's really not a motorcycle movie. It's a movie about Richard Grieco whining for an hour and 40 minutes about finding love and how he only wants true love. So it's almost like 2 movies in one. It's really weird and bizarre. There is an interesting fact I got for this movie, Wayne. As soon as I saw his name, it was written by this guy named David DeFalco, okay? In like 2002, 2003, he made a movie called Chaos, which was described as one of the most disturbing films of all time. Usually when they do that, that's usually not as disturbing. It's got some disturbing stuff in it. So I had to buy this movie on DVD back in the day because I wanted to watch it because it was so disturbing, right? So I got it. So on the there's not a commentary. There's an actual bonus feature. This is just to show how petty this director who wrote this movie is. He didn't direct this movie, but he wrote this one, Point Doom. He directed Chaos. There is a bonus feature on him and his producer defending the movie from its bad reviews. And they actually quote Dan Geyer from the Chicago Tribune in their little segment because he said something nice about them. Lo and behold, though, if you go and you actually watch see the Dan Geyer review, which I read back in the day, back in when this movie came out, it's a 1-star review. 1 star out of like 4 stars. But he says something like, could have been a great movie, or this scene was fantastic, and that was it. So they centered on that one point. So it's a bonus feature of the producer and the director trying to attack all the critics on the DVD. And I thought that was hilarious. So when I saw his name on here, I was like, oh, this is going to be something interesting because I'm sure it's going to be awful. Because if you look at his credits and stuff, there aren't many, but they're all bad. And this one he was not wrong. I was not wrong. This is a terrible movie. There aren't a lot of redeemable qualities about this movie. Like I said, Richard Grieco is terrible. He looked like he was coked out of his mind the entire time they made it.
That widow's peak, though.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's trying to keep his hair, you know.
Eddie Munster, man.
It's such a strange movie. And the fact that you have Angie Everhart, who was like a Playboy model and known for being in like Skinamax movies, and she's playing like a sister who's got like anxiety and seizures. It's just a weird aspect to throw into the film. Where you have this other sister taking care of her who looks like she's probably about 10 years younger than Angie Everhart. So it was very confusing. Yeah, you could skip this one, I'd say. Wayne, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's got the strip club scenes, if that's what stokes your flame, but...
I guess, yeah. It's got some of that. It's got nudity. Lots of TNA throughout.
I mean, if you're an Andrew Dice Clay fan, you could watch it for that aspect, but, you know...
He's not terrible. He's probably the most enjoyable part of the movie. But it's not good. It's just awful. Just plain awful. And...
I don't give anybody a reason, but yeah, just no. Just don't. There are better bad films to watch that we've reviewed the last couple weeks.
Yes. And I think I'll go back to the 80s next week because this was more like this was like a 2000s one, which, like you said, it felt like an 80s movie, but unfortunately, it didn't have the look of an 80s movie to make it like that much cheesier. It looked like a somewhat newer movie, but like a really badly shot newer movie. Yeah, it's a weird chunk of film history. That would be the only reason to see it, to be like, that's how bad movies were made in the early 2000s. late 90s. That'd be the only reason. All right. Moving ahead. So we are going to go on to what we've watched. All right. So I'm No Longer Here is Mexico's film that they're submitting for the Oscars. It's on Netflix. It's a Netflix original. It's a movie about a young man who leaves Mexico because he's someone's trying to kill him, and he kind of has like this dance gang that they like go around and like listen to this music, and it's really good, like kind of fish out of water immigration story, and where he feels he belongs and all that kind of stuff. It's enjoyable to an extent. It's a drama, so a lot of these are dramas. So if you're not into dramas, then you may not want to watch all these. Minari, which is the front runner for the Oscars this year. We're going to talk about that in our Golden Globes episode. But that was a great movie. It's another movie about immigration. It's fantastic. I also watched The Dig with Carey Mulligan on Netflix, which is a drama about a archaeological dig that uncovered a Anglo-Saxon ship from like the late, or from like the 600s or something like that, inside in this woman's like backyard. I thought it was very interesting. My wife thought it was kind of boring. Promising Young Woman, another Carey Mulligan movie. That's the one that got all the nominations this last week at the Globes. Kind of like a rape revenge movie. Really good. Not necessarily how I thought it would play out, but I really did like this movie a lot. Penguin Bloom with what's her name? Naomi Watts. It's on Netflix. You can check that one out. It's a drama, an Australian drama, true story about a woman who falls off a balcony and kind of has to find a way to be herself again after being paralyzed. And then Head Count, which is a horror film I watched on Shudder. I thought it was pretty good. It's got some pretty bad reviews. This guy reads a story off the internet and accidentally brings this shape-shifting monster to life, which I thought was really kind of cool how they did it. It was a very kind of intense, slow burn. And then the other movie I watched, which I haven't posted about yet, is called Porno. It takes place in a small Christian town in the 90s, at a theater run by a Christian man where they're showing the movies Encino Man and A League of Their Own. And it involves these teenagers who are supposed to be very Christian as well, finding this old film reel in the basement of this old like adult S&M torture film. And when they play it, the ghost from that film comes to life. She's like a demon. And so it's called Porno. That's why I think a lot of people would probably stay away from it or not say that they watch this movie. I'm not one of those people. It was enjoyable for the most part. It wasn't as fun as I thought it would be. It was a little more serious, I think. But yeah, it was a decent film. There is lots of penises being mangled. So if that's something that bothers you, don't watch this movie. But it is also on Shudder. You can check it out. And that's what I've watched this week. Wayne?
I'm still working my way through Dexter. I am on to season 5. And, it's starting to... This is the Lumen Pierce season with the Barrel Girls and...
okay.
Leah Styles is the Love Sisters is after Rita is...
Yeah.
Had story arc. So I still enjoyed this one, but I know that it's I'm looking forward to the Dexter revival. Everybody knows. Yeah. I've been watching a lot of Cold Case Files, just as like background and stuff. Not too much. I did see a lot of talk and controversy about the 2020 film The Prom, the musical, revolving James Corden's portrayal. James Corden is a straight man. He portrays a gay man in the film, and there's been a lot of criticism of his role. So I decided to watch this. It's not great. I know you yourself are not a fan of the musical, so it's kind of like, for you, maybe, possibly. I know.
I'll watch it just because it was nominated, but I'm not going to, yeah.
Have you seen this yet?
No, I haven't seen it yet. No.
And I don't, again, this is just from my understanding and digestion of this film so far. I don't really see Corden going over the top with his portrayal. I just don't think he's a very good actor. I'm not seeing the character. I'm just seeing James Corden trying, not being successful at it. So, and again, I'm not sure this is just what I got from it. There were many other issues with this film. It felt way too... And, I mean, the songs were catchy and fun, but that only, stifles me for so... Or that... Not stifles. That only will entertain me for so long unless, the story moves... it's moved along and whatnot. And this just kind of, very, successful former performers not being as successful. Oh, it breaks my heart. But again, I don't know, maybe it's because I don't really understand or I can't relate to it with their anger toward this. His role and performance, I don't think he did it maliciously at all. I don't think he's a very good actor. So, again, I hope that doesn't come across the wrong way. I'm not trying to make any excuses for him or anything like that. But I received it, and it's not a great musical movie overall, so... I feel like I want my time back after watching it.
It's fair to say. All right, so we'll go into the news and the movies coming out. News, Sonic Prime TV show coming to Netflix in 2022. Keith Carradine, Nick Stahl, and John Glover, John Glover was in the movie Scrooge, joined Fear the Walking Dead. The reason I wanted to bring that up is Nick Stahl kind of on a comeback trail. He's had a few movies come out this year. He's going to be on Fear the Walking Dead, so kind of a big deal. I've always liked Nick Stahl. He had some drug problems over the last 10 years or so, which kind of halted his career. Glad to see that he seems to at least have it under control, and he's acting again. I've always thought he was a really good actor. Disney...
Well, if I was Terminator 3, I'd have a don't.
Disney Plus is going to do a Wakanda show in the works with Ryan Coogler on to produce. Jennifer Lopez headlining new Netflix action film called The Mother. John M. Chu to direct Wicked adaptation. Chloe Zhao, who just got nominated for her job of directing Nomadland, will be creating and directing a futuristic Dracula film, sci-fi western for Universal. They've got a bunch of their monster movies in the works there. David Leitch, who directed worked on the John Wick movie and also directed Deadpool 2, is teaming up with Will Smith for a new thriller. Movies and TV shows coming out. Pacific Rim: The Black, a Netflix animated series, lands March 4th. Those Who Wish Me Dead with Angelina Jolie and directed by Taylor Sheridan hits theaters in HBO Max May 14th. Looking forward to that one for sure. You can follow us at Now Showing with Mike and Wayne on Facebook and Instagram, at now_Wayne on Twitter. Email us at nowshowingwithmikeandwayne@gmail.com. My personal is We Are Screwed 2 on Twitter, Mike1830 on Instagram, at Michael Kirkpatrick on Facebook. Wayne is at Wayne Yerke on Twitter and Facebook, at Wayne_Yerke on Instagram. We are also on Entertainment Buffet's YouTube page. Go check them out. Subscribe. For Wayne Yerke, I am Mike Kirkpatrick. Thank you for listening to Now Showing with Mike and Wayne.